So you're running for Congress, but you're a former real estate agent, and on top of other couple things. So before we get into your campaign, like tell me, like th- the real estate market, working in real estate, especially, like I mean, that's tough. Like, how have you seen working in real estate for 30 years, over 30 years?
Yep. Over 30 years. Yes.
So, how have you seen the real estate market actually change in that time? Must have been crazy, right?
In the last 3 decades, yes. Our economy has really been significant in real estate in the part that it's played. Politics has played a huge part in the how we've practiced real estate. But I work with everybody from residential construction development into commercial and even large farms. So my view, and over the last 30 years, it's been a blessing uh, to see how we've moved through the economy and what part real estate really does play in our overall global economy, from what we do right here in America.
Yeah. So, was real estate something that you always wanted to do, or was it something that you just stumbled upon?
Actually, I started out in stock brokerage. That I started out in finance. So
Mhm.
when I was a sophomore in high school is when I started working at Merrill Lynch.
Oh, okay.
And I worked post high school, moving into broker, eventually, then yes, moving into real estate. Um, it's incredible how much of those pieces fit together because we're always looking at a person's portfolio and the diversification of that portfolio, how it fits together, and how those individual pieces, just by maneuvering one just ever so slightly, really tweaks the rest of it into a different shape. So, real estate was wonderful to be able to move into, especially as a woman. At that time, there weren't a lot of female stockbrokers. It's predominantly male, and real estate in the residential side is predominantly female, but the commercial and definitely farm and ranch is still predominantly male. It wasn't till the late 1980s
Mhm.
that women could get a small business loan in their name without a male cosigner. So for me to be able to open a brokerage in the early 90s, I have to thank the legacy before me that afforded me that opportunity. And I appreciate anybody who's listening to this that was part of that. I am so grateful that you laid that foundation for me to be able to build on.
So, can you repeat that year again? How? When was that?
1986.
1986.
1986. Yeah.
That was only like
Yeah.
what, 40 years ago? About
Yeah.
40 exact, right?
Yeah. It has not been long that women have been able to own a house in their own name, have a car in their name, have credit cards in their name. It has not been that long. The women who actually, fought for that and made policy changes on that, and really, I mean, they protested and stood up for the future generation like myself. They're still living. They're still, fighting the good fight. They're still coming out there and making sure that we still maintain that right. And I think that's something that we can really look at our political environment today. I personally apologize every day to the generation ahead of me that really made some huge strides in my rights that I haven't protected.
Mhm.
We, as a generation, did not ever think that those rights would be rolled back. And so we didn't even think to do things to protect those rights. I don't think we even knew what to do to protect those rights. But boy, are we learning. We are learning really fast now.
Yeah, that is crazy because it seems like things are still changing. They're not perfect.
Yeah.
They're good. I mean, I guess depending who you ask, because it just seems that we're just so separated, especially now with when it comes to politics and how public perception changes from one person to another. So that's pretty crazy.
But I love that about politics. I love that about real estate. I love that in our community. I love that we have different focal vantage points from many different angles. I love that people are open to share those with me. That's what makes people make policy. And if you're a good representative, whether it's in real estate or financials or in politics, it is starting out with people first and listening to their stories, listening to where they came from and how they are today, but then where they want to go, where they see their goals, what are their dreams. I don't think that we dream enough like we used to. We used to say, the American dream was home ownership. That
Mhm.
was commercials on the TV when I was a kid, even. Now we're like, dream about a home. Uh, you're lucky if you can rent an apartment,
Yeah.
nonetheless actually own your own home. So we need to get back to that. And we
Mhm.
start with talking to people and more importantly, just sitting and listening to people's stories.
Mhm. But and it seems like now people don't even want to own a home. I don't know if they just don't have that desire because they know that it's extremely hard to own a home. And coming from California, I know how hard it is to own a home. That anything that you could really get is an apartment. And it sucks
Well,
because
it is, it's not the desire is there.
mhm,
It's the ways and means is the hurdle. For the last 20 years, I have worked as a volunteer on my own time and dime. I actually go to the United States Capitol and uh, walk bills through, champion individual bills. And the bills that I have worked on has been affordable housing, affordable health care, consumer protection, veteran services, and farming. And through championing some of those bills, we have been able to see a direct result from those the time that I've spent there. I initially started doing that in 2004 when clients of mine, real estate clients, especially small business owners, I kept seeing imperfections on their credit that precluded them from being able to have a home. They had to be involved in home ownership. They could own a business, but they could not purchase a home because of lending requirements. When I started really dividing down into what was on their credit, a lot of it was medical issues and unpaid medical bills. Well, they could not afford, as a small business, health insurance. And I'm like, I didn't understand that because being utilizing my spouse's insurance, I had never looked into it as a small business. I did a deep dive on what was available, and it was extremely expensive to be able to do that, to have an insurance policy for your family as a small business owner. So in 2004, the National Association of Realtors was helping to champion a bill that would allow competitive bargaining in healthcare with groups and associations. So like unions and the bar association, the realtor association, the small business associations, they would be able to have this opportunity to bargain for a policy just like a big business would, like a corporation. And I
mhm,
went, wait a minute, this will help my customers. They will then be able to own a home because they will have this opportunity. So I went with them and championed this bill that it did not pass in 2004. But I went back in 2005 and met with some other agents, some other realtors from Illinois who said, look, we have a new senator and he is gung ho on healthcare. And I'm like, cool. I don't care who he is. I don't care what state he's from. If he can help get this passed, I want to talk to him. So I went with this group back to the Capitol, sat down with this young senator, and went through this is what you could do for the American people, for small businesses, for their families, for their legacy. That senator was Senator Obama. And
Right.
that was the foundation of what became ACA in the marketplace.
Because I mean, as soon as you said that in 2004, 2005, you went with a senator in Illinois, and it was Barack Obama. As soon as you
Yeah.
said that, because Barack Obama, he started, and many people may not know this, but he actually started with that being something that he was passionate about and working towards. It was affordable housing and these going to these I want to say the projects and really
Mhm.
go door to door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And even at the time, I mean, he was just a young guy who kept bouncing around his office. It was fun to try to get him to sit down and just, I mean, eventually he got out the legal pads and we started working through, what would that look like when they finally when they were able to pass it? Would it, how would that branch out into small businesses being able to go to different insurance companies? How could they bid differently and so forth? And we just sat there and brainstormed for like 2 solid hours, a group of us. I left that day going, well, I hope it happens. And later on, it did. But that was what we talked about was way beyond where ACA is today, even.
Mhm.
That was the foundation. There's so much to build off of that we have not been able to get to that we really need to bring to the market that would really help the health, the mental health of all of our families. We
Mhm.
do not do well taking care of our children, our elders, and our veterans. We
Mhm.
just don't do well with that. Um, but we can do better. And we do better by starting to listening to those groups, figure out what precludes them from, if they even have health insurance, being able to utilize their health insurance, having access, and how to overcome those barriers. When
Mhm.
we talk about it, they're not huge barriers. They're pretty simple and they're something that we really could do well with.
Yeah, and especially healthcare, because with healthcare, even if you have insurance, it's not like you're going to be covered fully. You still have to pay
Correct.
premiums and like co-pays.
So
So,
I always say insurance, like healthcare and home insurance, it's going to help you with that time when it comes. But like with housing insurance, when you flood and you have a flood policy, it's going to help you recover from the flood. It's not going to give you a new house, just like health insurance is going to help you get better. It's not going to give you a new body.
mhm, yeah. And another thing with healthcare is there's insurance, which is one thing, but there's also the healthcare system. And it's also not perfect. It's far from perfect because it seems like this system is built to keep people sick and just barely hanging on, not to actually cure them.
Agreed. And I will say our Black constituents, especially our female Black constituents, are the less heard. They just, when they go to the doctors, they do not feel like they are heard. So we know, even as representation, but especially as a doctor, if you're not listening in detail and taking the time, which time is money, taking the time to really listen to your patient and believe what they are saying. They are
Mhm.
not, that gives you inappropriate or misdiagnosis.
Right.
And then we really do not keep people healthy and we're not giving them the right thing. And we're doing trial and error where if we had just taken a little bit more time and spent with that person or believed what they were really saying and feeling, we would have a different program, that medical program that we would have had them on.
And then there was this belief in the between doctors that black females had a higher pain tolerance. And like, why would that even matter?
Women have a higher pain tolerance. We give birth, but let's be honest. We menstruate every month and we still make dinner happen. We still go
Oh
to
yeah.
work. We still take care of the kids. yes, we all women do have, I feel, because I am one, a higher pain tolerance, and I have two young children. I have two grown men, but even as young children, I am like, this is your pain tolerance. My youngest son just suffered an emergency appendectomy.
And we're back. We just had a minor audio issues. So let's. Where were we?
We were talking about pain tolerance.
Right. Okay.
So my youngest son was on a business trip and he suffered an appendectomy. And he was in the hospital for a week. And I'm sitting there with him and I started teasing him. I'm like, now you have a new benchmark for your pain tolerance. And he was like, oh, this is so bad. This is like the worst thing I've ever experienced. I'm going, yeah, it actually is. But now you have a new threshold for that. And he goes, yeah, yeah, it is. Because, oh.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean that's true. I mean, if women just have a higher pain tolerance than men, I mean, you don't even want to see when a man gets sick. Like it's like the end of the world's near. So that is true. Uh, now,
With our Black women with healthcare, the number one thing I really want to push out on
mhm,
is that they have the highest maternity mortality. And we need to be very, very mindful of that. And we need to do a much better job with getting prenatal care to those women. They have a hard time getting prenatal care because of the jobs that they are doing, the family responsibilities, that they're not getting that time off to get that good prenatal care, even if they can get to it. In Texas, we have a huge gap in our physicians and our OB physicians. Um, there's not a birthing center from Texarkana to the Gulf of Mexico. Women literally are giving birth in the ER, and that is not okay. That
mhm.
that is just let me just put that right out there. That is not okay. And when you stop losing your OB doctors, you start losing your pediatricians. Then we have no specialist for our children to keep them healthy. And we end up with this generation of no preventative care and no response, taking longer response time to get healthcare to those kiddos. That's a generation that continues to grow, that continues to have greater issues, which is going to cost us more money to have healthcare out there for our elderly, our youth, our kiddos, and our veterans. It just becomes more and more expensive. So we need to do better.
No, we definitely do. And it seems like there's so many issues that need to be fixed. But at the end of the day, a lot of people, especially in Congress, I want to say the entire political system, they benefit from issues not getting fixed because if issues are never fixed, they will just run on fixing the issues, on wanting to make the country great. But it never gets to that point because if everyone's actually living a good life, what are they going to run on? Making it greater? That doesn't sound as good as making America great again, right?
The I really don't believe that we are in a political system of left to right.
Hmm.
I don't think that's where we are. I think we're top to bottom. We are the billionaires and then everybody else. And that's really when you get down to the kitchen table discussions, when we are out there door knocking, and we do it every single week. We phone bank twice a week, 1,000 phone calls. So we are talking to people right where they are, wherever they are. And when we're discussing what is the issue, they're talking about making rent, buying groceries, providing healthcare, having education, additional education for their children. So not just the children going through K through 12, but what happens afterwards
Hmm.
and being able to do that. The sandwich generations. We are in the land of, we have our parents are in nursing homes, and I'm the generation that's having to pay for that because we don't have care. especially if it's memory care, there's no insurance that's paying for that. And that is like $6,000 to $7,000 a month per parent. Then you have your child going to college. And even for a state school, you're looking at $7,000 just for tuition, not including fees, labs, books, dorms, just basic living expense.
Hmm.
So this middle generation that we have right now are really, really concerned about being able to just keep a roof over everyone's head and feed everyone.
Hmm.
That is not a left to right. That is top to bottom.
Hmm.
And we can do something about that very easily.
Yeah. And another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the food disparity that we have in the country and how people that can't afford groceries, and I'm talking about like nutritious groceries, are left with buying a lot of junk food. So I walked into Dollar General the other day and I was walking through the aisles and it just felt icky. If I mean, just to put it plainly, because the amount of junk food there, it just feels like this is what people are left to, just being able to buy something that they could afford, and it's just a bunch of junk food with a bunch of sugar and a bunch of ingredients in there. This is not healthy. And what causes, or what happens when somebody is not healthy, is that they get sick. And when somebody gets sick, that's where their money is going, and their inability to be able to be able to be efficient, I guess, in just in their daily life, and just dealing with a lot of health issues, not being able to focus at work, that may also affect their income. So it's all a cycle, and it affects uh, poor people the most.
It's really interesting because the word is cycle, and it is a cycle, and it's a cycle that doesn't have an ending unless we are able to try to break into that cycle. When you speak about food insecurity, which is what we're working with, not only is it not access to good food, it's very shortly, and I'm saying very shortly because I monitor our farms, because again, I do farm and ranch. Very shortly, we're going to have a problem with food shortage. So even if you have the money, the groceries are not going to be on the shelf. You're not going to have the vegetation that we've been accustomed to getting. It's literally not, it's going to be very limited. And that has to do with the war that we are doing right now. We are blocking fertilizer. We've sent diesel fuel through the roof. Our farmers have, like here in Texas, our Texas farmers will be harvesting very soon because we're the first to harvest, being a southern state. But there's not seed that's been purchased for the next crop because we can't get fertilizer. They're rationing, purchasing in small groups that fertilizer. Also, they're not ordering their diesel fuels to be able to crop because the money is
Mhm.
not there. I mean, when we're over $119 a barrel, this is not something that farmers at this point, not farmers would not make money, but they would have to use money out of their savings account or borrow more money to even crop, to lose money. That just doesn't work. So when we're talking about food insecurity, and food is the first foundation and element to healthcare. You have to have good food in order to have good healthcare.
Mhm.
We are going to be in a crisis if we don't turn this around very soon.
Yeah, that's one of the technical difficulties that I have to deal with and in real time. But yeah, so so how we were talking about the the food system really affects a community, and for especially for communities that don't have good food, they're left with being in the food desert, that they just have. I know you've seen this, just when you're driving somewhere, and then there's just fast food all over the place. There's places that just don't have the necessary grocery stores and are just left with these fast food chains, and that's where they get most of their nutrition from, and especially convenience stores and such. Some people just don't have access to nutritious food, and some people may have access to nutritious food but don't have the ability to pay for that.
Correct. And I have nothing against our fast food chains. Those are businesses that employ people.
Mhm.
Um, I have issues that we are not paying fair wages that are livable wages, especially when it comes to our food insecurity. It's again, it's that cycle where we don't make enough money. I call them our working poor because they do have jobs. They just don't make enough money, even working 40 hours, to be able to pay the rent and to put food on the table. That they, to put gas in their car is almost a bonus at today's prices. Many people are carpooling, which I love to see. Pull your resources together, but we shouldn't have to do that. It should be something that we want to do. We're in a have to do. And food deserts is it again, it's something that is fixable. These are they just have to become a priority. That's where representation comes into play. That's where Congress comes into play. That's where you're talking about politics, what happens to make things better. It's what is a priority, and we work on that priority together. That priority is organic. It will change from time to time depending on where we are, what environments we're in, where we are with the economy, where we are with our trade market, which has been a trade war for well over a year now. We're not recuperating from that. It's actually still hurting many of our businesses, which then lowers wages, that then lowers what people bring in to be able to pay for things. That, again, we're back to that food. We're in the vicious cycle that needs to be broken. And we can do that. We can. It's not well, this is the new America and this is how we're going to live the rest of my life. No, it just is a change in priority. And we can make that change in priority.
And another thing is like, where do we go from here? Because it just seems like everything's just getting worse.
And it will until there's a different priority. The current priority is Project 2025. Now there's the Esther was the next book that came out. The next book that they are utilizing is on July 4th. They have America the next 250 years. This is their priority. I don't think this is what voters voted for. I really don't, because I hear that every single day. I'm a Republican. I'm a legacy Republican, but I didn't vote for this. This is not my party. And I go, I understand. There are extremes on both sides of this spectrum, which is why the 80% in the middle is really who I work with and represent. But it is taken this way. And again, I will tell you, it has turned this way. We can turn this and we can work back together, just trying to get to those middle grounds. If you take one step further, I have championed over 50 bills in the last 20 years, and several of them have come to fruition. The CFPB, the Consumer Federal Protection Bureau, that is a bipartisan. The screw rooms bill that was just yesterday passed in the House as part of another bill, that's a bipartisan bill that helps with food. These things can happen. So don't lose faith on this is it. It's not it. There are people who work every single day to take your story, to take your goals onto the Hill and make them into policy, because that's really the steps that in that order that need to happen. People first, then policy. And you will start to realize it. It takes a little bit of time to realize it at your kitchen table, but you will start to realize it as we have this shift going. We can do this.
We need to do a better job at electing officials that are going to be actual representatives. and not just a politician, a corporate politician at that.
Right. You are correct. Um, I will tell you that the feel of the environment on the Hill is definitely different. I used to sit in hearings, 20, 15 years ago, where if you coughed wrong, the sergeant of arms removed you. I mean, they were like out. Now it's kind of a spectator sport. They're there in the room, but they're like, unless you get out of hand, it's a free for all. Um, the people on the dais, the representatives that were in the hearing, were not there for their 45-second soundbite and then leave the room. And that I see over and over and over, where someone will come in, say something about absolutely nothing we're talking about. I mean, it is nothing we're discussing. And then they did their soundbite and then they leave. And I'm like, you are serving on this committee for a specific reason, which is the agenda of the committee, not your personal agenda. This wasn't your social media op. So I have to say to members of Congress, both the House and the Senate, if this is not the job that you want to do and that you're all in on, please resign and let someone else who really wants to represent people step into that position. We will thank you for your service and say our appreciation and goodbye. Time to get the one in who will work it.
I mean, you know what they say that a lot of politicians get into politics because they failed at like at a movie career.
Um, I've been on the Hill. There's not that many pretty people on the Hill for a
That's my
movie
point.
career. I mean, most of them work very, very hard, and that's the what we don't get to really focus on or give accolades to. That there are representatives that are there working ridiculous hours that actually do read the bills that they vote on. I know that's kind of a novel idea, but yes, there are representatives that are shocked that they voted for a bill that then had something in it that they didn't know about. And I'm like,
Mhm.
did you read it at all before you went and voted? And there's a lot of reading involved. There's a lot of, I mean, you have to disseminate a lot of these bills very quickly, and it takes a lot of time. You have to actually like to do it, or this is
Mhm.
going to be a hated job.
Right.
I have heard politicians, and I call them politicians because they're supposed to be representing people in a political light, but they don't like people. And
Mhm.
I'm like, um, friend, this ain't your job. Please go do something else. Because if you don't like people, you probably shouldn't be in the medical field or the political arena at all.
Mhm.
This is not for you. Please go find something else to do.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I know
but yeah, if you
of a
like
few.
people, huh?
I know of a few. I've met. Actually, I met Cory Booker. I mean, he was super nice. I would want him or someone like him to be president because I mean he couldn't have been nicer. So it's one of those things that you kind of get a sense if they're just being fake nice because they're a politician or if they're genuine. And from some, I mean, so some of them are just like rude. Uh, I've heard that Marjorie Taylor Greene she's like super nice, very welcoming. Corey, and you especially for MGT, you wouldn't have thought that, especially when she first ran for office. But sometimes it seems that a lot of politicians are just playing a role and they're just trying to get in there.
And I don't know what for. Um, Congress currently has given away its power, basically. We That's the first thing we have to establish is that there are three equal branches of government. And my number one priority is reestablishing the checks and balances of Congress. Congress has taken an oath not only to uphold the Constitution, but you represent the people where the Senate represents the states. And as representation of people, you are representing their money. So the money that we pool together to do large projects and big things that go across state lines that affect all of America and our reputation abroad, that's your job. And for $174,000 a year, where you have to pay your own expenses to be in DC, that's not a lot of money at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Why would you want to do this if you don't like watching people succeed? If that's not your goal and that's
Mhm.
not where your jam is watching a family be able to have that health care, be able to purchase that home, be able to send their first child to college. I mean, those are huge chapter moments that we should all celebrate in. I hear too much, and I say too, one to me is too much,
Mhm.
of the neighbor that says, well, that person was able to get a new car and I couldn't. Okay, can we go over and celebrate the new car? Because we need to celebrate those accomplishments in our community as a whole.
Mhm.
Just because somebody gets something does not mean they're taking it from you.
Mhm.
That attitude, again, we can do better. We can do better with making our communities healthier, wealthier, and more have more opportunities.
And especially appreciate effort, because it just seems that if someone gets something and they work hard for it, they just look at that one thing that they get, but they don't actually look at the work that went into it. And we need to appreciate effort because it matters.
That's part of that dreaming that I was talking about. We don't dream enough and we don't celebrate in each other's dreams enough, because this is kind of one of those, a rising tide will lift all boats.
Mhm.
A rising tide still today lifts all the boats.
Mhm. Because I'm not one to come out and say that person shouldn't have that much money or they shouldn't be in that position. I mean, I know that a lot of people say that about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and you have a lot of these characters that a lot of people don't like them just for the simple fact that they're in the position that they are. Now, whether they should be able to accumulate that amount of money, that's a different thing. But people like that work extremely hard for that money that they an ordinary person would not want to be in the position that Elon Musk is. I mean, running five different companies. I can't even run one company at work. That's one of those things.
He has amazing CEOs, though, that work with
Mhm.
him, and that is a great thing for him, that he's been able to assemble talent.
Mhm.
Where we get into issues with our major corporate landlord is that the tax structure that we have for them is that they have been omitted, they have been given grants or leniency on paying taxes. So, for example, you mentioned Elon Musk. So,
Mhm.
SpaceX is right here in Texas, and they were given the opportunity to not pay taxes as a corporation for several years. So, in the meantime, who protects SpaceX when people come out and take pictures and so forth?
Mhm.
The local sheriff. Well, who's paying the local sheriff? The taxpayers, the residential taxpayers are paying for Elon Musk and SpaceX to have security. Is that their burden that they should be bearing on their families?
Mhm.
No. That's where we get into, you brought a business in. We thank you so much. However, your tax breaks do not equal out on our tax as a whole. So
Mhm.
those companies and those individuals should be paying the same percentage taxes as the rest of us.
Mhm.
The fact that they have tax breaks on their income, no, we all pay that same percentage.
Mhm.
When we have people who are making less than $60,000, but 40% of their income is going into taxes, that's not fair and equal.
Mhm.
We need to do better. These are places that if we make that a priority, not only will we balance a budget for like the first time in several years, but we will also have people and families, children that can have a home, that can eat, they can have childcare, they can have education, because the families now can afford and bear that.
Mhm.
our political system, once again, that is where I think some of the anger or irritation that you're hearing with our big businesses, that's where it lies. It lies on the individual residents that are directly affected by those businesses.
Mhm. Well, one other thing that people really need to understand in order to find a solution is understand how a lot of these billionaires get taxed, because it's not like Elon Musk is a W-2 employee and receives a paycheck every Friday. That doesn't happen.
Mhm.
He could simply just use his stock as collateral to purchase anything he wants. Uh, and you can't tax something that he has not sold. So, in order to be able to come up with a solution on how to tax the rich, is you need to understand that they are not regular employees receiving an income.
Correct. And again, if we make that a priority, there are several ideas out there floating around, and I invite everyone into that discussion to come up with ways, some possible solutions. When we talk about someone the tax breaks, one of the things I'm looking again, real estate profession, is our capital gains tax. We have not looked at capital gains since 1972, 70, 72, 74.
Mhm.
Our economy has changed a lot, especially in housing since then. I mean, it's only been 50 years. So we need to take a look at that. We also need to look at how we treat longevity in home. And this is where I talk about housing affordability, so that not only purchasing a home, but being able to stay in a home. So, as when you purchase a home, you have an insurance policy, you pay taxes, but each year that insurance is going up. Each year those taxes are going up, but it's the same house, and our income is not going up to match that. Insurance went up almost 400%, four times the amount, 400% on a lot of people, not just in Texas, but as I went to the Hill and started talking to other representatives going across the nation, that precludes people from being able to stay in their home. So we need to watch that also. So when we talk about tax advantages, we're talking about people, especially 65 and older, and maybe they have been in their home 10 years to 50 years. Maybe they always lived in this home, but they built in equity in that property. And at the time they sell it, they get a capital gains write off. Again, we haven't looked at that since the 1970s. We need to revisit the amount. However, if you are a single person, you only get half of the advantage of the tax advantage. That is not fair when you and your spouse or you and your partner
Mhm.
built all this equity into this property, but one partner dies and then you sell the property, you only get half of the gains. Again, this is an easy fix with a bill. This is something we need to look at and make a priority. People being able to stay in their home, pass that home ownership down so that there's legacy built in. That will help us immensely in being able to do more housing affordability.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's just one thing from all of these issues that we have, because I mean there's home affordability, there's health issues, there's a huge drug problem, and that's the thing that's causing the huge amount or the huge spike in homelessness too, because it's not just a bunch of people that can't afford housing. A lot of those people have nowhere else to turn, and they turn to drugs. So now they're hooked on drugs. So even if you give them the ability to get an apartment or any type of housing, they're not really interested in that. They're because there there is a huge. It's not everybody, but it's a huge amount that it causes a problem in itself.
Our prisons are our largest mental institutions. And that's what you're discussing is the drug use, and that comes from a mental health and a situational. that leads them to be criminalized to then live in prison. We also have the other angle, which is PTSD. I work with the PTSD Foundation here in 38, and we actually have a warriors camp. So if you've seen Active War, men can come to Camp Hope, and it's a minimum 9-month rehabilitation. With working with them, I discovered that several of those men did not have homes. And upon completing this PTSD, which part of that is working with an on-staff physician 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because they do have drugs that they were not only ones street drugs, but ones that they were prescribed that to fix this, to fix this, to fix this, but nobody got together and said, wait a minute, there's this underlying cause that's causing all this that wouldn't require any of these drugs. So then we have to wean them off of those drugs.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working with that camp, while working with them, I discovered that once they were rehabilitated, they were left back to the street because they don't have homes. And these are veterans.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked to get what we call VASH, which is housing certificates, like Section 8, but specifically for veterans, to make sure that we could get them into a home, get them stabilized so that we can transition them back into our community. And that is, again, another cycle. Now, our homeless problem that we have ranges anywhere from individual to families. I am in Harris County, and there are no family shelters in Harris County.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a choice other than to live in their car. So they will always be considered homeless because we don't have shelters for them, or we have to divide them up, and we never want to have to divide families.
Yeah.
But you are correct that in building infrastructure, using public housing, we started subdivisions that were for lease specifically. Now we've got some challenges that have come out that's precluding that from continuing. So we're going to have to overcome some of those stop gaps that are happening from builders building that type of community. It seems like every time we get an idea and we go, this is not going to fix the problem, but this will help the problem, somebody comes in and goes, nope. And the majority of the time, it's an unintended consequence. We were trying to do something else and didn't realize that we were going to, crash or stop this really great program that we had just started. Again, that comes from talking to people, making sure that we are open to listening and communicating, being effective communicators on what we're pushing forward so that people will look at it and can digest it quickly and go, wait a minute, this bill Melissa's talking about, that's going to affect my business. I wonder if she knows that. Well, I need them, whoever this person is, wherever this person is in the nation, I need them to be able to pick up the phone and go, she will listen to me. I want them to have that type of attitude that they will call and go, did you know that if you push this forward, this is going to happen? And we get to go, huh, we better probably change that a little bit
Oh yeah.
and make sure that we make those changes going in.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to your first comment on we don't listen enough.
Mm-hmm.
I do listening tours, even starting next month. We start listening tours every month. We bring people in a room for 2 hours, and I go, my job is to sit here with a pen and a piece of paper, and I'm going to sit here and just listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, I am not in office yet, but I'm a person in this community, and I have volunteered on the Hill for 20 years. Tell me your story. Tell me what you see, and just let them talk.
I agree. I agree 100% because it seems that not many people listen. I mean, not many politicians are in the business of listening. unless you give them a certain amount of money, then they might consider it listening. But other than that, yeah, no luck there.
I consider that bought.
Oh yeah.
And if you are a representative, you are voted into office. You are not bought into
Mhm.
office. And there is a difference.
Oh yeah. But I've really enjoyed this interesting conversation, and I hope things change because every election is like this is the most important election of your lifetime. I'm like, well, I've had several of those already. So,
I have a feeling this one will be, could be your last election.
mhm,
That is, again, there's only one thing that wins a campaign, and it's votes.
mhm,
That's why I personally do not do a lot of seeking endorsements, because the endorsement I want is from my community that I have lived in for over 30 years.
mhm.
I want your endorsement in a form of a vote.
Right.
That's how you hire me, and that's how you fire me. It's in
Mhm.
form of your vote.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, well, I mean, I've enjoyed this conversation with you, and hopefully we have many more.
Sounds great. Anytime, give us a call,
All
okay?
right, thank you so much.